Thursday, after the end of the court proceedings, Trump made some public comments outside of the courtroom, and it appeared to be a bid for ineffective assistance of counsel. Once he files an appeal after the conclusion of the trial, and on Friday, Judge Merchan said at the start of the proceedings of the case that he wanted to clear up some misperceptions about Trump's gag order, and he said, "quote I want to stress, Mr. Trump, that you have an absolute right to testify at trial, just as you have the absolute right not to testify." Merchan then also noted that the gag order only applies to statements made outside of court, not his ability to testify in the trial. And Trump was also asked about the testimony of Keith Davidson after court on Thursday, and he responded, quote, "Well, I'm not allowed to testify. I'm under a gag order, I guess." And this is why he was looking at his lawyer, Todd Blanche. And then Todd Blanche, insane person that he is, nodded in the affirmative. So there were a couple.
You just
Yeah.
can't, even his lawyers can't say no to him, even though it's a dereliction of duty to not be forthright about that.
Yeah, so one of the things that could potentially happen,
unless they have an arrangement about what should be said during press conferences.
I mean, who knows what kind of agreement they have under the table, but Blanche looks extraordinarily unhappy when Trump's outside of the courtroom making these comments, and I totally understand, like, it's a clown show, but just because Trump says something insane, it doesn't mean you have to agree with it, and in this case, the comments that Trump made about the gag order preventing him from being able to testify were total bullshit. Not only were they bullshit, Blanche agreeing with him opens up the possibility for the verdict to be overturned should Trump be found guilty, because obviously that would be a lawyer lying straight up and giving bad advice to his client, which will open him up to arguments for ineffective assistance of counsel.
Maybe it's this up. Maybe it's deliberate. He's going to fall on his sword for his appointment, and it's not going to matter if he's been disbarred in the next administration.
So,
yeah, I mean, it definitely can open him up to sanctions. I would imagine there's going to eventually be some kind of hearing on that, regardless of the fact that the judge cleaned it up afterwards. But I'm glad the judge was prescient enough to take that event into consideration and address it the very next morning before we proceeded any further into the trial. Because the way this trial is going, Trump is fucking doomed, right? It's been a total disaster for the defense so far. Now, I know a number of other news outlets might give you a different interpretation of the events, such as Fox doesn't even count, but CNN has taken a position that, the defense has been doing fairly well, and I totally disagree for a number of reasons that we'll get to momentarily. But this has been going poorly. Trump's defense is, well, there were basically a handful of pillars of defense, and they're all being whittled away by all of the moves that the prosecution is making. And there's very little left to prove in this case other than just the falsity of the documents and the fact that Trump was well aware, even signed off on them. And I don't think the prosecution is going to have a difficult time proving that. That was actually the easiest part of the case to prove. And I had noted this before this got started, like, proving the fraud was the easy part. The difficult part would be proving the motive, and then the felony that bootstraps the misdemeanor charges up to felonies. That would be more difficult to prove. And the prosecution started off bootstrapping the misdemeanors up to felonies. They got the hard part out of the way first, and now they only got to basically prove some paperwork.
I mean, I guess it doesn't matter to his base, or even a lot of just people getting sucked into the bullshit rhetoric being spouted on Fox News, etc., that all they do is discredit this as a witch hunt, and then people can still watch this and come away thinking, like, witch hunt. I mean, Ty was telling me about somebody watching Fox News in her presence, and they're ready to people are eating it up that this is a lawsuit to be discredited and it's a witch hunt. So if that's all the defense they need, he's only trying to win the court of public opinion at this point.
Yeah, and
Since his position is indefensible, I mean,
it's wild too, because so a number of his potential VP picks, have been making the rounds this weekend on the news shows like Meet the Press and such, and a lot of them are being asked about will they still support him if he's convicted in this case, and they won't even really answer. And they're basically saying that this is a witch hunt by the Biden administration. Like, President Biden don't appoint the Manhattan DA. Alvin Bragg was elected. Like, this is a local prosecution. And
not also only that, but it's been going on since 2019 or even prior with Cy Vance. So it's not like it just popped out of nowhere and just started in 2022 or 2023 or this year.
Right. Again, they typically make these arguments about how this was intended to interfere with the election. Absolutely not. Like you said, this was up and running. This investigation was up and running in Manhattan as early as 2019. And the part of the reason that DOJ didn't indict him is because Bill Barr stepped in and personally intervened in the Southern District of New York to make sure this investigation didn't go after Trump in any way whatsoever. So, like, all those complaints are just nonsense. It's empty words as far as I'm concerned. And the reason why this took so long in the first place to get off the ground in Manhattan DA, part of the problem is when Bill Barr intervened, not only did he try and get the SDNY to lay off, he was also telling the Manhattan DA's office that SDNY's got it. So he was pulling that bait and switch / catch and kill strategy.
Look over here.
Yeah, playing a shell game with a potential Trump prosecution. I hate that guy. And the news networks keep having that motherfucker on for commentary, especially about this particular case. Like, they can eat a dick. They can eat a gigantic, rotten, monstrous donkey dick.
But not his, because it just doesn't fit the bill.
No, not in that regard. But no. Yeah, back to Todd Blanche here. Just, man, how far this dude has fallen. Just to go from having your reputation be perceived as a very competent and talented lawyer to this nonsense. Like, I can't imagine. I don't understand why so many lawyers throw away their careers. Have you guys ever, like, just sat and taken note of the number of lawyers in Trump's orbit that have been arrested or disbarred?
Most of them. Right, that's what when you were talking about, they don't get paid. Like, they end up getting, like, sanctioned and,
you need my card?
Disciplinary hearings brought against them. Oh my God, I'm so stuffy. I'm sorry.
You poor baby. Do we need to get you, like, some nasal spray? Or I have a cold too. It's been kicking my ass all week, but I've been toughing it out. It's that time of year. I don't know if people out there listening have gotten your flu shots, but go ahead and do that, and your COVID shot, just in case you do get a case of the stuffies, that it's not something more serious. Or, I mean, I guess to some degree, even if you do get the stuffies, it could still be COVID if you had your vaccine. So go ahead and take that test real quick while you're at it. Positive's not good. It's not like a pregnancy test where you get to celebrate after.
I'm definitely not testing for COVID or the flu.
You don't want to know if you have it.
I don't see how that would benefit me.
If you don't test, it doesn't exist, right? I mean, Trump said it. So
yeah, right. Okay, Trump.
If he said it, it's got to be real.
Testing is the first step toward having COVID.
Yeah, if we test, our numbers will go up.
Testing is the first step to getting it. Like,
I mean, there aren't even isolation procedures anymore. I mean, it's very lax. Like,
oh man, when
what's the point of what?
When the CDC will lower their guidelines for isolation after testing positive for COVID to 0 days, I was like, man, this shit here. And people complain on the right about how it's just the cold or the flu, but really what the CDC is saying, considering the fact that so many Americans have been vaccinated, that largely for the vaccinated crowd, it typically is like the flu. Anyway, I don't know how. What were you
I
saying?
know when they make those comments and they say things like, "Oh, you got the jab, you got the vaccine. Oh, but you still got COVID." Nobody said that getting the vaccine would keep you from getting COVID, but it reduced your chances of fucking dying from COVID. That was the point. Like, to keep you fucking alive. Like, not, yeah, you might get it, but it's going to be milder. But
well, in fairness,
also,
so you're
not going to die.
They did at first say that we wouldn't get COVID.
Well, there's efficacy rates for a reason, right? So with the original variant that was most predominant in the United States, the COVID vaccine actually was so effective against the original variant that you probably wouldn't get sick. In fact, the vaccine killed off the original couple of variants. And the thing is, the COVID virus has evolved so many times that it's now a more.
But why do we have variants?
Because people wouldn't take the fucking vaccine.
Yeah, exactly, Carol. And it's like, oh.
Well,
I guess they would have come from other places in the world, though, eventually, because other places didn't have the access to the vaccines that.
Well, the point is,
States did.
These current versions and variants of the COVID virus, they're more easily transmissible and can result in more severe symptoms. So the fact that the vaccine is holding up this well actually says a lot about how effective the vaccine was in the first place. But yeah, I don't know how we devolved into that conversation.
Because I have a stuffy nose.
Oh yeah, that's right. We got to get you some nasal spray or some Claritin or something to help you out with that.
I took a Claritin D, but it's wearing off. It's been like 8 hours.
Yeah. Make sure you.
Anyway, that was definitely topic 3.
Make sure you get
my nose and whether or not I have COVID.
Yeah, make sure you get some more. Take you some more D tonight, Carol.